because I just got to tell you, nobody ever in my life once has said, quick, get a gender studies major here. We have an emergency.
Candace Owens. And need I say more? She's considered a controversial by many, obviously by the left, but even by some right-wingers now, given the recent controversy she had after she departed the Daily Wire. Now, we're not going to talk about that today because that's a whole nother can of worms. But one thing you can say, whether you like her or whether you don't like her, is that she's got a profound impact in terms of the public sphere in conservative politics. That much is certain. So today we're going to watch a very interesting video with her tackling various cultural issues within the United States. But first, guys, please make sure you like our video, comment, and subscribe to the Resist the Mainstream channel. I'm your host, Arian, and let's get right into it and see what Candace has to say.
I don't know if it's stupid to say I'm neutral about pro-life or pro-choice.
It's not stupid at all.
Because I know that the person that I have a baby with will be my husband. So, but because not everybody has the same morals and the same principles as I do, and due to free will, people will have premarital sex. And when that happens, a baby will happen. So wouldn't it be better for the child's sake and happiness to not be born at all than to have a deadbeat father and a promiscuous mother?
Born at all?
Or even when it comes to or even when rape happens. Like, personally, if I was a kid and I know that my mom was raped and my dad is the rapist, like,
yeah,
I would be sad. Like, I wouldn't want to be here. Mm-hmm. So what does it truly mean to be pro-life? Like, are you pro-rape? Are you pro, like... Sorry.
It's okay, guys. Let her ask the question.
Not like that.
I think it's totally fine for you to ask the question. Go ahead. Finish.
But it's like... I'm all for... Like, because I'm all for, like, family values. Mm-hmm. But having a child raised like that... Mm-hmm. What type of family value is that?
Okay, great question. Thank you for asking it. So I think I was pretty open about the fact that I used to be pro-choice, and so I want to first acknowledge what you're saying, because one of the things that the left is really great at is arguing in extremes, right? The most extreme scenario. What if you are a 10-year-old and you are raped and you get pregnant, right? Rather than addressing the fact that 99% of the abortions that we're dealing, 99.9% of the abortions that we're dealing with are not in those circumstances at all. And it's just people that are having promiscuous sex and wanting to get rid of their children because they're not prepared to be parents. So I first want to say that to argue into the extremes is not productive, because as a government, you have to rule, to create policies that are good for the majority of people. You're never going to get it perfect, but the majority of people. The second thing that I want to speak to is you saying that you don't think it's, that situation that you would want to be born into. Well, I have done a lot of work with pro-life charities, and they have had people who were the children of rape scenarios, and they're glad to be alive. So it's not our decision to say whether or not someone's life is valuable. In order to hear what they think, they kind of have to be born, right? And the last thing that I'll say, as somebody who was raised in not the greatest circumstances and who came from a broken family, I sure as hell am glad that I was born. So thank you so much for your question. I totally understand it.
All right. So yeah, that was an interesting exchange there. A couple things I wanted to address real quick. One of the points the girl makes earlier was that, well, if somebody was, and Candace kind of addressed this, but she was saying if somebody was raped, then, they wouldn't want to live. I wouldn't want to live. Who are you to make that moral judgment? It's, and I'm not trying to beat on this girl too hard here, because she seems like a nice girl, but it's a very narcissistic form of judgment. And that, well, I'm determining this person's life not living. Why? Well, I don't know. If I had to suffer the way they did, I wouldn't want to be alive, so they shouldn't be either. That's insane. And Candace very correctly pointed out that there are plenty of people who come from awful circumstances that you hope no child goes through, but sadly some do. And they still recognize the beauty of life and what a great gift they have to be alive and be on this planet. So that's number one. It really reminds me of this. There's this podcast that's kind of popular. It's also a book called Freakonomics. And many people herald it as, ooh, they're experts. One of the co-authors, he's an economist. So, that means he's really smart, I guess. We're supposed to say that. One of the arguments that Freakonomics podcast made in one of their episodes was that Roe v. Wade was a good thing because it lowered the crime rate. I'm not kidding. That's what they argued, that Roe v. Wade lowered the crime rate because there are more abortions. Well, let's think about what that means. First of all, they're saying it's good that these babies got killed because, well, there's less crime, according to them. Not that I agree with that, but let's just say we do agree with that premise. What they're arguing for is eugenics. Because who is the #1 recipient of abortion per capita in the United States? Black woman. In fact, if you go to New York City and you see a black woman, she's more than likely to be on the way to the abortion clinic than the delivery room. I'm not kidding. They abort at a rate of higher than 50%. It's tragic. So that's where that whole moral line of, well, maybe their life's not worth living, whether it's because of them or because of society. That's what that leads to. It's a very dangerous and ugly thing.
I was just wondering, where do you think, the average conservative college student can land in a corporate environment that is changing just like the college institutions did a long time ago?
Actually, I would disagree. The free markets kind of gets rid of BS pretty quickly. I always say to people, man, if you are majoring in gender studies, what are you going to do with that degree? It might be time to stop and reevaluate. Because I just got to tell you, nobody ever in my life once has said, quick, get a gender studies major here. We have an emergency. And so at the end of the day, and as somebody who is unapologetic free market capitalists, the free markets will take care of it. They're not just going to be hiring gender studies majors at Goldman Sachs to fill some quota, right? And when you think Elon Musk is like, I gotta hire a few, people that majored in gender studies because I have to fill quota. No, at the end of the day, you actually are going to have to be skilled to enter the workforce. And I think that's actually part of the reason why when a lot of these students get out into the world, they're so angry because they can't make any money and they feel like the system has cheated them. And in many ways it has. You've been kind of rinsed and brainwashed with all these ideas, believing that if you pursued these social issues as degrees, now you're in tons of debt, you can't get a job because nobody thinks that you're really that smart because you studied all of these obscure topics. It is a bit unfair, and that's what I hope to undo, and that I hope people have this awakening and understand that you gotta be able to provide something. Way better to stay out of school, learn how to fix air conditioners. I'm dead serious. They're making a ton of money, a killing. Learn how to work with your hands.
So this opinion might surprise you guys, but I actually have to disagree with almost everything Candace said. I like her part at the end about learn to work with your hands. I mean, that's true, for sure. You can take a look at what the average plumber makes, for instance, and it's a lot more money than many people realize. And it costs a lot less money and a lot less time to get that skill set in order to garner that kind of salary. So that's all true. If you recall, the kid said, what do we do about corporate America going the way of, this leftist, far left progressive way, the way the universities are? And Candace says, well, I don't agree that's not going on. It totally is. And look, full disclosure, I really like Candace Owens. Candace, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. Don't get mad at me. You're great. I don't like to disagree with her, but take a look at how leftist and extremist and woke corporate America has gotten recently. I mean, Candace mentions Goldman Sachs herself. She says it's not like they're going to be filling some type of quota. If you look at the Goldman Sachs website, you can literally go to their DEI, diversity and equity and inclusion section. And on there, Goldman Sachs basically discusses how they're going to start discriminating against two groups of people very specifically, white people and men. And they don't say that because they're too cowardly to admit what they're doing, but it's quite obvious. For instance, it very emphatically states that they have a goal to have 40% of their vice presidential positions, that's a high up executive position, 40% of those positions be women by 2025. Well, what does that mean? Obviously, it means they're going to be discriminating against men. Men who are qualified are going to get passed up and screwed over because they want to fill a quota and put more women in. Obviously, that's the case. Call me sexist or whatever, but you're the sexist by discriminating against men, if we're being frank here. They also have quotas for black people, Latino people. Interestingly, Goldman Sachs has no quota for Asians. I wonder why. That's kind of weird. So maybe the racism isn't only against white people, from the sounds of it. Other examples that come to mind. United Airlines. United Airlines has went and promised with their new initiative that they're working on getting at least half of their pilots in their new recruitment class to be females or minorities. What does that mean? Well, much like Goldman Sachs, it means they're discriminating against whites and men, white men. There's even an article in the Chicago Sun-Times about this United mission. It's mainstream stuff, guys. Like, this isn't some crackpot theory here. The article says, white men have ruled the skies for quite a long time. Now that's coming to an end. I'm paraphrasing, but that's literally essentially the title. I'm not kidding. You can look that up. So that's some wicked stuff, and that's very much corporate America. I don't think the free market is correcting that at all. It just doesn't seem to be the case. Anyways, let's keep going.
Hi, so I'm a girl going through high school, and my school's very liberal. So what advice would you give to conservative teenage girls?
Very hard on the teenager stuff because a lot of times, in colleges, at least they can invite conservatives to speak. And when it's high school, it's a little different because you're under the age of 18. And so the state has a lot more control over you. The advice that I tend to give to people that are in high school and people that are in middle school is really advice for their parents. And it's for parents to find their voices and to encourage your kids to stand up for themselves. There was the recent story, I don't know if you guys saw, of the kid that had the "Don't Tread on Me" on his backpack. And you should just go find him if you haven't. Don't tread on this kid. I did a whole episode on it. And I think he was 8, 9 years old, and he had a backpack, and the teacher said that it was racist to have the "don't tread on me" thing on his backpack. Not only was this kid so educated and basically told her she had no idea what she was talking about, but then he had his mother behind him in the administrator's office saying that she was not going to make him take this off of his back, the decal off of his backpack. And to be that sort of a student in the world, to know who you are, to assert who you are to these teachers, to not back down from it, but then to have the backing of your parents that say they're not going to tolerate it. Too many parents have become fearful of being called a name, whatever that name is. You're a homophobe, you're a sexist, you're a racist. Half the time you're dealing with teachers and administration that have no idea what the heck they're talking about, and they're trying to, make you silent. They're just trying to silence you and to say that this is the way it's going to be. Students need to find their voice, but parents need to be able to back up that voice with the megaphone. So that's what I would say.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Amen, guys. I really love Candace's point about how parents need to speak up. And frankly, they're doing a bad job at it. I don't like saying that, but look at the crazy viral outbreak that you can't name on YouTube that we dealt with for years and years of endless, some say, tyranny. They were literally, first of all, they forced kids online and locked them in their homes with their parents. Then when they brought them back, they started masking them like they were dogs or something. Where were the parents then? I didn't see many complaining. And then some did, but then all they did was complain. You think the founding fathers would have put up with that? I'm just saying. So, all that to say, Candace is totally right. Parents need to stick up for their kids. And hopefully we'll have a better nation as a result. Well, guys, that wraps it up for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. As always, please be sure to comment below. Let us know what you like and whatever you might want to see next. We'll see you all again soon. Thanks. God bless.